Bonelab is, by its very nature, divisive. It's riddled with duality. It's simultaneously a game and a modding tool, a sandbox and a roller coaster, a physics engine and an experience. But most importantly, it's simultaneously a monumental success and an unprecedented failure. Let's get right into it. Before we get into Bonelab, we have to talk about its predecessor. It's no secret that I love Boneworks. My lock screen has this image and my channel's About section suggests I would fuck the game, which, I might. But what makes Boneworks so good? I've gone into detail on this in a full review, so I'll keep it brief, but it boils down to an incredible system that allows for total player freedom in an infinitely interesting world. Boneworks' physics system and level design forced me to tackle problems like I would in real life, instead of as a player in a game. It let me kill this guy in 1,000 different ways with 100 different weapons, all of this taking place in an incredibly unique setting with an intriguing underlying story. That's what makes Boneworks so great to me, and it was by far the best VR game on the market. However, because it was so good, my expectations for its sequel were unbelievably high, like Cheech and Chong levels of high. It also makes it impossible for me to review Bonelab without comparing it to Boneworks. So here's how Bonelab stacks up, 3 years after its predecessor. Bonelab's story is really frustratingly good in theory. You start as a rogue NPC, cheating death and escaping your home only to find out everything you've ever known is a lie. You uncover more and more and start asking questions. What is this place? What happened to your creators? Who saved your life and is now mentoring you? This all culminates in escaping Fantasyland into City District 06, with the elevator snapping and a long descent into the lab. This setup is phenomenal. The whole prologue, my brain was trying to piece story elements together, use my prior knowledge of Boneworks, and a little bit of imagination to make everything make sense. And that process is just so much fun. Unfortunately, a lot of the elements level 1 so effectively sets up just get shoved aside. A lot of the tension and interest built in the first few levels is just dumped off a cliff in order to focus on Jimmy and Lava Gang, which is interesting enough, but so much less cool than the rogue NPC approach. The problem is, Bonelab's story has a bunch of really cool ideas, but not enough focus to hone in on them, and that just makes it so frustrating, because it could have been so much more. Bonelab narratively also lacks the direction Boneworks has. Once I figured out my goal for immortality in Boneworks, I knew what I was doing and where I was going. I was crawling closer and closer to the tower through the city in order to cross into Fantasyland and get into the void. A single, simple enough, linear goal. Bonelab says fall down, explore and try to escape, but don't because you need to now get these avatars, but stop because now you need to get through the Boneworks backend to escape, but fuck that, join Lava Gang and come chill in the void. The goal changes so many times and our character never feels like he has a concrete motivation. Combat in Bonelab is the best in any VR game ever made. Boneworks already had the best guns in VR, but melee combat, especially with fists, was really janky. Stress Level 0 saw this and added a new effects and feedback system that makes blunt object and hand contact more visceral. It really does feel like carving someone's face in with a baseball bat, which is a field I have a lot of personal experience in. They also must have changed some of the object weights around too, because everything just feels better to swing. All the new weapon additions are welcome too, melee and gun. Shotguns feel weighty and powerful, they fixed the shitty SMGs from Boneworks, and they added a plunger, which is cool too. Stack already flawless gun mechanics on top of improved melee and some cool weapons, and you have an absolute winner of a combat system. I saw some people complaining that the guns feel worse in Bonelab than in Boneworks, so I ran some tests, and my only conclusive result is that guns in Bonelab have a bit more recoil. That can either be good or bad depending on who you ask, but for me it's not really a problem. The level design of Bonelab is way more iffy. It's far more condensed in general than Boneworks, with less open spaces and a zoomed in scale. This has upsides and downsides. For example, Bonelab has a lot of great combat encounters and set pieces because it's so focused. Like, come here, come on, check this shit out.
last as long.
Big Anomaly A has some of the best fight rooms I've ever played, and levels like Ascent and Street Puncher are full of fun-ass opportunities for combat. However, a downside is that the smaller and more linear scale makes Bonelab feel less cohesive. I'll get into this more in a later section of the video, but Bonelab feels less like a world and more like a series of locations duct taped together. MythOS City, the main location in Boneworks, had huge sprawling cityscapes and gigantic industrial malls, and the scale made the world feel real. Bonelab is cramped and disfigured by comparison, and very few areas are actually connected to each other in a way that makes any sense. Hallway after hallway is flung on the player, and eventually I started to reminisce about getting my holes torn open by an Omni projector in the beautiful tower back in Boneworks. Shut up, Hour! Christ! Wrapping back around with the theme of duality, there are some moments of level design brilliance. The lab itself is a fantastic hub world with tons to do and forces you to get clever. Big Anomaly is beautiful and liminal, and Ascent is 40 minutes of pure gold. But there are also moments of bottom-of-the-barrel ass strippings, like Bridge 04, the stupid moon level, and the pillar section.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man.
This pillar section could take a flying fuck into a jet engine. It kills every single ounce of momentum Bonelab was building up until that point, and it was building it up pretty good. But when it's at its worst, Bonelab can feel downright unplayable, demonstrated by our good friend JFJ.
Kill me. Kill me. This sucks. This is atrocious.
The inconsistency of the levels makes the whole package feel worse than its predecessor. But Bonelab's best moments are gonna have me coming back for years anyways. I just wish there was a little bit more. The game took me about 8 hours to complete on my first go, and that's because I was really fucking stretching it out. Adding another 2 or 3 levels in between Ascent and Home would have done wonders for this game. And with the avatar switching mechanic, the last act of Bonework could have been fantastic. As it stands though, what's here is mostly great. I just wish there was more.
Yo, this is Arthur Ford, and I'm about to do a kickflip, son.
Visually, Bonelab is striking, just like its predecessor. But whereas Boneworks was more industrial and dark, Bonelab is bright and surreal. You bounce all over the place in terms of setting, from medieval towns to digital cities, sewers, the backrooms, and hell.
Kill me.
This variety is a double-edged sword though. Bonelab never gets that same sense of, again, cohesion or place that MythOS has. The settings are initially more appealing but less interesting than those in Boneworks. Unfortunately, a lot of the environmental storytelling graffiti found on the floor in Boneworks is gone too, even though there are some clipboards, which is nice. Musically, Michael and the lads once again got it done masterfully. Honestly, I'd probably give him and his team man of the match, as he carries the game way more than people give him credit for. From the moment the game boots up, boom, hang yourself, Gregorian chant, fire. Dungeon music, fire. Would you even know? Fire. Hall Vortex, fire. Stankface, not even in the fucking game, just on the Spotify soundtrack, fire. The atmosphere each and every one of these tracks provides is unmatched, and it's on par if not maybe a little better than Boneworks' soundtrack. From everyone in the SLZ music department, absolutely well done. 2 pats and a hip hip hooray. As it stands, Bonelab is not worth $40. If it was the same price as Boneworks, there'd be no issue. If it was less, it would be phenomenal. A lot of people's complaints, like the length of the campaign, can be drawn back to the price. If it was a $20 game with a 7-hour campaign and mod support, that's a fucking steal. But doubling the price tag means that the game needs to have a little bit more meat on its bones. Everyone's also creaming about mod support and how mods are gonna change Bonelab and VR as a whole. Listen, I like mods, and I want to become a mod creator for Bonelab once I learn the standard development kit. And I clickbaited the shit out of people on my last video, so I was at some point aligned with that bias. However, I prioritize a game being shipped with enough developer content to fill its price tag. I don't want to wait and see what other people make. I want to see more of what Stress Level Zero makes, because they're good at what they do. They're some of the most talented devs in the entire industry, and it pains me to see them blatantly not playtesting as much as they should, and have the best intentions when making kind of stupid decisions like relying on mods. I know I've kind of bummed everyone out with these last few sections, so I want to wrap up things on a good note. Do I recommend you buy this game? Yes, absolutely. Despite its flaws, there are so many fantastic ideas and so much passion on display from Stress Level Zero that it makes it impossible to not recommend it. If you haven't played Boneworks, this game will feel like straight up magic at first. However, is it better than Boneworks? Honestly, No, and if the campaign stays its current length and new ambitious updates aren't rolled out, I don't think it ever will be. Some fundamental issues like the level design, world building, and story hold it back too much. But Bonelab tried something new. It tried avatar switching, modding support, unique storytelling, body remapping, 100 other things. It's bold, and for that, stress level 0, you have my undying respect. As it stands on the Grand Navy Sam scale, which covers all forms of media from books to movies to video games to real-life crimes, Boneworks' rating has been raised to a 10, and Bonelab is getting hit with an 8.5. Thanks for watching and stay tuned, dipshits.
I want to ride.